Hello everyone, so today we are going to discuss the syllabus of paper F4 Corporate and Business Laws. Now, what are the things which we are going to cover under corporate and business laws? What are the different topics which you are going to study, and also a brief analysis of the topics which are covered in the syllabus is what we will discuss in this video. So when we talk about the subject corporate and business laws, what are the different topics? Let's have a look at them. So the first topic which we are going to cover is essential elements of the legal system. Now, what is that which we are going to study here under essential elements of legal system? So here we are going to basically understand first what is law and also the hierarchy of courts, what are the different sources of law. Basically, the English legal system is what we are going to cover here. Now, talking from examination point of view, this is not one major section. This doesn't mean that questions are not asked from this particular topic. Questions are definitely asked from this topic, but this is not one of the major sections from examination point of view. This is more of a general topic to give you an insight as to what law is, what are the different courts which exist, and also the hierarchy of courts. Not only that, what are the different sources of laws. That is what we are going to cover here. Moving on to the next topic in your syllabus, and that is law of obligations. Now, this is one very important and one very major topic of your syllabus. What are you going to study here? Here, we are going to cover about the different laws related to contracts. Now, contracts are something which we keep entering into on day-to-day basis. So, which makes this topic a very important one, and this is also a significant topic from examination point of view as well. So, here under this law of obligations, we are going to study about different contracts, what are the different elements of contracts, what are the different contents of contracts, what happens in case of breach of contract, what is law with regard to torts, and what happens in case of professional negligence. So these are the different things which we are going to cover under law of obligation, and this is one major topic even from your examination point of view. And it becomes a significant topic from daily life perspective as well, from practicality perspective as well, because reason being, contracts are something which we enter into on regular basis, making this topic a very important one. So under law of obligations, we are going to cover how a contract is formed, what are the different contents of contract, what happens in case of breach of contract and what are remedies for breach of contract, what is law with respect to torts, and what is the law with respect to professional negligence. Moving on to the next part. The next part of your syllabus covers law related to employment. So, employment law is something which we are going to cover next after law of obligation. Now, why understanding law of obligation is important before we move on to employment law? Because employment is also a result of contract. So, in order to understand the other laws, it is very important that we first understand how a contract is made and what are the different essential elements involved in a contract, and only then we will be able to understand the other laws or the other laws in a proper manner. So the next topic which we are going to understand, which we are going to cover, is with respect to employment law. So under the employment law, what are the things we are going to cover? We are going to understand what is the meaning of the term employee and what does a self-employed person mean? What is the difference between employee and self-employed? Apart from this, we are also going to understand what are the different components of the contract of employment, and then we are also going to cover what happens in case of dismissal, or how does the contract of employment terminate, what happens in case of wrongful or unfair dismissal, what are the remedies which are available in case of wrongful or unfair dismissal. So these are the things which we are going to cover under the employment law. And then moving on to one very important topic, which is formation and constitution of business organizations. So herein we are going to understand that what are the different types of business organizations which exist and how are these different types of business organizations formed. Now, what are the different types which we are going to cover here? We are going to cover the agencies, what happens in case of agency, how a partnership is formed, how are corporations formed, or how are corporations with legal personality formed, and finally we'll understand about the formation of a company. So these would be the 4 subheads under this topic: formation and constitution of different business organization. So what are the different types of business organization? When we talk of carrying on a business, a person can carry on his business either as a proprietor, he can act as someone's agent, a company's agent, he can enter into a partnership or establish a company. So there are different forms of business organization. It becomes very important for us to understand that how are these different forms of business organization incorporated, or how do they come into existence, and also how are they constituted. And apart from this, we are also going to understand what are the features of these different types of business organization under this particular topic. So this again becomes a very significant topic. Moving on, after this, what are the things we are going to cover? Then we'll talk about capital and financing of companies. So herein we'll discuss about what is share capital, what are different elements of share capital. So under this head, capital and financing of companies, we are going to understand about share capital, loan capital, how a company, what are the different types of capital which exist in a company, how are the shares divided, what are different types of shares which a company can issue, and also different things with regard to share capital. And when we talk of loan capital, we are basically talking about the borrowing. So how can a company make borrowings, and all the rules and regulations with respect to borrowings, what are the powers which a company has, what is the borrowing power of a company, also how can a company issue debentures and raise capital in turn. So these are the different things which we are going to cover here under this topic, capital and financing of companies. And apart from this, we are also going to understand a doctrine here, doctrine of capital maintenance. So the doctrine of capital maintenance is something which we are going to cover here, and also dividend law is what we'll cover here under this particular head of capital and financing of companies. And apart from it, the other part talks of management, administration and regulation of companies. So we'll first start with understanding how a company is formed. Then we'll understand about capital and financing of companies, and then we'll move on to management, administration and regulation of companies. Now herein we are going to cover what are the different types of directors in a company, what are the powers which the directors have, which the board has, power which the board of directors of the company has. And we are also going to understand that what are the situations wherein a director is disqualified, what are the situations wherein a person cannot act as a director in a company, what are the different duties and authorities which have been assigned to the directors. And apart from it, we are also going to understand about the other officers who are appointed in a company and what are the roles which these other officers play. So this part of management, administration and regulation of company basically deals with company's directors, their appointment, their disqualifications, their powers, and not only the directors, but it also emphasizes, it also talks of how are the different officers in a company appointed and who are the other significant officers, significant officials in a company. And apart from this, we are also going to understand about company meetings and the different types of meetings which are held in a company, different types of resolutions which are passed in the meetings of the company which are held under this particular topic of management, administration and regulation of companies. Post which we are going to understand about the insolvency law. Now, insolvency law, as the name itself suggests, it deals with the topic of insolvency, how liquidation happens, how winding up happens, and what are the different procedures and rules and regulations related to insolvency and winding up is something which we are going to cover under the insolvency law. And finally, we are going to understand what happens in case of corporate fraudulent and criminal behavior. So here we are going to understand about insider dealing, what happens if someone is found guilty of insider dealing, or if someone is found guilty of any market abuse, any other procedures in order to identify the fraudulent behavior of a person, and what are the steps which are taken in order to punish this person who is involved in this fraudulent behavior or who is involved in any type of criminal activities. So this was in brief all the topics which form part of your syllabus. So if we divide all the topics, let's make a short summary of all the topics which we are going to cover here. So the first topic which we are going to cover is about the legal system. Basically the English legal system, wherein we are going to understand what is law, what are the different courts, hierarchy of courts, different case laws, what are the different sources of laws. Then under law of obligations, we are going to understand about contracts, how are contracts formed, what are the different rules and regulations with respect to contracts, what is law related with respect to torts and professional negligence. Post which we are going to understand the employment law, under which we are going to understand who is an employee, what are the provisions with regard to contract of employment, and also what happens in case of dismissal of an employee. And then we are going to understand about formation and constitution of different business organizations. Now, what are the different business organizations which we are going to cover here? We are going to cover agency, partnership, corporations which have legal personality, and a company. And after understanding about formation of company, we are going to deal with a few topics with respect to a company only. What are they? The first one is about capital and financing of companies. Then we are going to understand about management, administration, and regulations with regard to a company, with respect to a company. Post which we are going to understand about insolvency law and corporate fraudulent and criminal behavior. So this is entirely the syllabus of your F4, paper F4, corporate and business law, covering entire 100 marks. So these are the different topics which we are going to study under corporate and business laws. So we've now understood what are the different topics we are going to cover, what is your syllabus. Now that you've understood the syllabus, let me just give you a few more insights about the topics involved, about the things involved in this particular paper. Now this is a paper which is a complete theory paper, which means you do not have any practical questions here. When I say no practical questions, it basically means there are no numericals involved here in this paper law. It is a complete theory paper, a complete theory subject rather. It is a complete theory subject. So when we talk of a theory subject, when you go through the text, when you go through the study material, you will find that there are several case laws which have been quoted in your study material after several points. So there are n number of case laws which have been given. Now these case laws or these case studies are basically an example. They are given to you in a form of an example as to what happened when this particular thing was brought up in the court and how did the courts decide upon this particular, how did the court arrive at a judgment and how did the courts they interpret law. So these case studies which have been given to you, they are basically in the form of examples as to what the courts decided in a particular matter which was brought forth them, which was put forth them. Now one significant question which usually comes up is, do we have to remember all the case studies? You do not have to remember all the case studies or all the case law, but what you have to understand is that what was the court's judgment and how did the court arrive at a particular decision with respect to a particular case is what is important. So in your study material, you have different case laws which have been given along with the facts of the case and the final judgment which was arrived at by the courts. And these case studies will definitely help you understand the law in a better manner, because you will understand that what courts decided on the basis of the law which was prevailing. So when we talk of case laws are basically the principle of law which was established by the courts in a particular case. So one question which we've already answered, and that is, you do not have to remember the entire case law. All what you have to understand is that how the judgment was arrived at and what was the implication which was derived by the courts. So that is what is important. Now talking about the subject, since it is a theory subject, you do not have to mug up things. Rather, you have to concentrate on understanding the different laws which you are studying. So understanding conceptual clarity will help you in examinations as well. After this, we'll drop in another video wherein we'll talk of what is your examination paper pattern and also how do you approach towards this paper F4 corporate and business law. So this was entirely about what is the syllabus and what are the things we are going to cover under corporate and business laws.
Hey, are you considering ACCA as a career path? Then you're at the right place. Call us at 9640 or log into indigolearn.com or download our app OneFin by IndigoLearn.